Stand up! Talk to me! Why did you do this to me?
Rain hammered the streets of Chicago as Maya collapsed against the brick wall. 21 years old, barefoot, forgotten. She watched an elderly man in an expensive suit stumble and fall on the wet pavement. People stepped over him like he was invisible, just like they did to her. But Maya didn't walk away. She dragged him to shelter, shared her only plastic sheet, stayed through the freezing night. When morning came, she learned his name, Robert Sterling, real estate mogul worth billions. "Why didn't you leave?" he asked. "Because nobody deserves to die alone," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "I have a dying wish. Will you help me?" What Maya didn't know was that saying yes would change both their lives forever and make her the most unlikely heir in American history. What happens when a homeless girl saves a billionaire's life? Will he help her? Or has she just saved the man who will change her destiny forever? Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss where Maya learns the shocking truth about who she just rescued. Drop a comment below. Would you have stopped to help? Let's discuss. Maya Rodriguez had become a ghost in her own city. At 21, she moved through Chicago's glittering downtown like a shadow, present but unseen. The tourists rushing past with their shopping bags never looked down. The businessmen in their press suits stepped around her without breaking stride. She had no home, no family, no one searching for her. Every night, she slept behind the old metro station near Clark Street. Not because it was safe, nowhere was truly safe, but because the security guards had stopped chasing her away. She would curl up beside the rusted fence under Platform C, wrapping herself in a torn plastic sheet that did little to keep out the bitter wind. Maya's body told the story of survival. Too many hungry days had left her thin, her collarbones sharp beneath her dirty shirt. Her dark hair hung in tangled waves past her shoulders. She had no shoes. Her feet were cracked and bleeding, covered in scars from hot pavement and broken glass. But she never cried anymore. Tears were a luxury she'd abandoned years ago. Most people ignored her completely. Some glanced with pity. Others looked at her with disgust, pulling their children closer as they passed. Nobody ever stopped to help. Nobody asked her name or how she'd ended up here. Maya carried a secret she'd never told anyone. Despite everything she'd endured, despite the streets and the hunger and the endless nights alone, she was still a virgin. Not because she was saving herself for something special, but because every man who tried to take that from her had been met with her fists and her speed. She always ran, and she was fast. That October evening, storm clouds gathered overhead like a dark blanket. Maya sat behind a closed bakery on Michigan Avenue, waiting for the owners to throw out yesterday's bread. It was her best chance at dinner. Her fingers trembled from cold as she pulled her knees to her chest. The wind picked up, sharp and angry. People rushed past with umbrellas and briefcases, all heading somewhere warm. She watched them with hollow eyes, feeling the familiar ache of being the only person with nowhere to go. Then she saw him, an elderly man, maybe 80 years old, walking slowly with a silver cane. He wore an expensive charcoal suit that was already soaked from a drizzle. Every few steps, he would stop and lean heavily on his cane, breathing hard. In one hand, he carried a leather briefcase. In the other, a folded newspaper. The rain began falling harder. Maya looked away, assuming someone would help him. Rich people always had someone. Then she heard the sound, a heavy thud and a clatter of metal on concrete. She turned. The old man was on the ground. His cane had rolled into the gutter. His newspaper floated away in a puddle. And people kept walking. A woman in heels actually stepped over his outstretched leg without even glancing down. Maya waited. Surely someone would stop. But nobody did. Something inside her stirred. Anger, maybe, or recognition. She knew what it felt like to be invisible, to need help and receive none. She stood up. Her feet screamed as they touched the cold, wet pavement. She walked quickly toward him, weaving between the indifferent crowd. When she reached him, he was trying to lift his head. His face was pale, his lips moving without sound. "Sir," Maya said softly, kneeling beside him. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open, gray eyes sharp but exhausted. "Help!" she shouted to the passing crowd. Somebody help. No one stopped. A man in a red baseball cap looked at her, shook his head, and kept walking. Maya's jaw tightened. She wasn't surprised, just disappointed. She slipped her arms under the old man's shoulders and began pulling him toward the covered alcove beside the bakery. He wasn't heavy, but he was dead weight, his body limp and cold. She dragged him out of the rain and propped him against the wall. The space smelled like grease and spoiled food, but at least it was dry. She placed his head gently in her lap and studied his face. He was still breathing, but barely. His chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven movements. "Don't die," she whispered, rubbing his chest, trying to warm him. Her own fingers felt frozen. "Please don't die." Maya didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. She lay beside the old man in the alcove, sharing her thin plastic sheet, pressing close to him the way she used to huddle with stray dogs for warmth on frozen nights. She listened to his breathing, shallow but steady, and watched the rain continue to fall. By morning, the storm had passed. Gray light filtered through the clouds. Maya opened her eyes and found the old man staring back at her. She sat up quickly. "You're awake." He blinked slowly, as if trying to remember where he was. His voice came out rough and dry. You stayed?" Maya nodded. "You didn't take my wallet?" "I didn't know you had one," she said honestly. A small smile touched his lips. "Who are you?" "Nobody," Maya said. "Just someone who saw you fall." He studied her face for a long moment. His gray eyes were sharp again, more alert. "You could have walked away. So could everyone else." He let out a weak chuckle that turned into a cough. Maya helped him sit up against the wall. "You need a hospital," she said. He waved his hand dismissively. "I've had worse." He looked down at his expensive suit, now rumpled and stained. "Though I suppose I look ridiculous." "You look alive," Maya said. "That's what matters." He turned to her again. "What's your name?" "Maya." "That's a beautiful name." He paused. "I'm Robert. Robert Sterling." Maya's breath caught. The name hit her like electricity. She'd seen it before, on buildings downtown, on construction signs, in newspaper headlines she'd read through store windows. "Wait," she said slowly. "Are you the man who owns half the real estate in Chicago?" He nodded. "Among other things." Maya looked down at her dirty hands, suddenly aware of how close she was sitting to one of the richest men in America. "I didn't help you because of that." "I know," Robert said, taking her hand. His grip was cold but steady. "That's exactly why I'm going to ask you something." She frowned. "Ask me what?" "I have a favor to ask." "A wish, actually." "My last one." Maya stared at him. "Your last wish?" "Yes." His expression grew serious. "And I want you to help me fulfill it." Before Maya could respond, she heard the low rumble of an engine. A sleek black car rolled into the alley, moving slowly until it stopped just feet away. The driver's door opened, and a tall man in a dark suit jumped out. "Mr. Sterling." The man rushed forward, his face pale with shock. "My God, sir, are you all right?" "I'm alive." "Marcus," Robert replied calmly. "Thanks to her." The driver, Marcus, turned to look at Maya. His eyes widened as he took in her bare feet, her tangled hair, her torn clothes. "This is Maya," Robert said firmly. "She's coming with us." Marcus hesitated, clearly unsure what to say. "She saved my life," Robert continued. "She's with me now." Maya felt panic rising in her chest. I can't get in that car. I'm dirty. I'll ruin your seats." Robert looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not pity, not disgust. Something else. Something like respect. "Maya," he said softly, "if anyone deserves to sit in that car, it's you." She swallowed hard. "People will stare." "They already do," he said. "But if you don't walk into places where people look at you like that, they win. Don't let them win." The way he said it made something shift inside her. Before her brain could catch up with her body, her legs were moving, one foot in front of the other until she reached the open car door. She slid inside. The leather seat was warm and impossibly soft, like sitting on cloud. The door closed with a quiet click, sealing her inside a world she'd only ever seen from the outside. The interior glowed with tiny lights along the ceiling. There was a small refrigerator built into the console. A screen flickered to life, showing the weather forecast. This is real, she whispered. Robert smiled as Marcus helped him into the seat beside her. Very real. As the car pulled away from the alley, Maya stared out the tinted windows at the streets she'd walked for years. But now everything looked different. She was moving through a different world, one she never thought she'd be part of. Where are we going? She asked. Home, Robert said simply. Maya's heart pounded. She had no idea what home meant to a man like Robert Sterling. But as the car glided through the city, she realized her life had just changed in ways she couldn't yet understand. The car ride lasted 30 minutes, but to Maya, it felt like traveling to another planet. They left the cramped streets of downtown and entered neighborhoods she'd never seen before. Wide roads, gated communities, houses that looked like museums, trees wrapped in tiny white lights even though it wasn't Christmas. Nobody honked. Nobody shouted. The silence felt strange and heavy. The car turned onto a long private driveway. At the end of it stood a mansion that made Maya forget how to breathe. It wasn't just big, it was enormous. Glass walls reflected the cloudy sky. Stone archways framed the entrance. Gold lamps lined the path. This is where you live? She whispered. It's home, Robert said, though sometimes it feels more like a museum. The car stopped. Another man in a suit opened her door. Maya sat frozen, unable to move. Robert touched her hand gently. Come, you're safe here. She stepped out slowly. Her bare feet touched smooth, polished stone. She immediately pulled back. I can't walk on this, she said, ashamed. My feet are. Marcus, Robert called. Get her something to wear. Slippers, a robe, and warm food. Yes, sir. Marcus nodded and hurried inside. Maya crossed her arms, trying to make herself smaller. She followed Robert through the massive front doors. Inside, the mansion was like something from a movie. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Huge oil paintings covered the walls. A grand staircase curved upward like a ribbon. Everything gleamed, and everyone stared. Maids in uniform, security guards in dark suits, a chef in a white hat. They all stopped what they were doing to look at Maya, like she was an alien who'd wandered into their perfect world. She lowered her eyes, heat rising in her cheeks. Stop staring, Robert said firmly. The staff immediately looked away, returning to their tasks. A woman in a green uniform stepped forward. Sir, your children have arrived. They're waiting in the main lounge. Robert sighed heavily. Of course they are. He turned to Maya. Come with me. I want them to meet the person who saved my life. Her eyes widened. No, please don't take me there. I need you with me, he said. But I'm nothing, Maya whispered. You're the only reason I'm not dead. He reached out his hand. Maya hesitated, then placed her trembling fingers in his. Together, they walked toward a large room with glass double doors. Inside the lounge were 3 people, 2 men in expensive suits and 1 woman in a sharp red dress. They looked like models from a magazine. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect everything. The woman gasped when she saw Robert. Father, what happened? Dad, you look pale, one of the men said. You didn't call us, the other added, his voice tight. Robert walked in slowly, still holding Maya's hand. I collapsed in the street. What? The woman cried. Why were you out there alone? Robert looked at each of them steadily. None of you answered when I called earlier this week. They froze. I had to go out on my own, he continued. Lucky for me, Maya was there. All 3 turned to stare at Maya. She felt their eyes like lasers, judging every inch of her. The man in the gray suit raised an eyebrow. Maya, she saved my life, Robert said. She dragged me to shelter, sat beside me in the rain. Didn't take a single thing from my pockets. She stayed. How kind, the other man murmured, his tone suggesting it was anything but. The woman stepped closer to Maya, circling her like a predator. And where exactly did you find her? I didn't find her, Robert said. She found me. Silence filled the room like ice water. Maya shifted uncomfortably. I should go. No, Robert said quickly. You stay. The woman's smile was cold. Father, are you sure this is wise? She could be. She isn't, Robert snapped. She's here because I brought her. Nobody spoke. Robert turned to the staff. Prepare the guest room. The green one. Find her clothes, food, medical care, anything she needs. Yes, sir, a maid replied quietly. Maya's lips parted. But I'm not a guest. Robert looked at her. You are now. As a maid led her away, Maya glanced back at the three people in the lounge. They watched her go with expressions that sent chills down her spine. The woman, Robert's daughter, leaned close to one of the men and whispered something. He nodded, his eyes never leaving Maya. She didn't know their names yet, but she already knew one thing for certain. They hated her. The green guest room was larger than any space Maya had ever occupied. The bed looked like something from a luxury hotel. Fluffy pillows, silk sheets, a comforter so thick she could disappear into it. The floor was spotless marble, and the bathroom had a tub the size of a small pool. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. Her hands trembled. A gentle knock came at the door. Miss Maya? I'm Nurse Patricia. May I come in? Yes, Maya said quietly. A kind-faced woman in blue scrubs entered, carrying a medical bag. She had warm brown eyes and graying hair pulled into a neat bun. Mr. Sterling asked me to check on you, Patricia said, kneeling beside Maya. Let's look at those feet. Maya, try to pull them back. They're disgusting. They're injured, Patricia corrected gently. There's a difference. For the next 20 minutes, Patricia cleaned Maya's cuts, applied ointment, and wrapped her toes in soft bandages. She worked carefully, never judging, never commenting on the scars or the dirt. Better? Patricia asked when she finished. Maya nodded, tears threatening to spill. Nobody had touched her with such gentleness in years. A maid will bring food shortly, Patricia continued. And tomorrow, we'll get you some proper clothes and shoes. She paused. Mr. Sterling cares about you. I can see it in his eyes. I don't understand why, Maya whispered. Patricia smiled. Sometimes the people who have nothing understand kindness better than those who have everything. After Patricia left, another maid brought a tray of food, rice, grilled chicken, steamed vegetables, and a small glass of orange juice. Real food, fresh and warm. Maya stared at the plate like it might vanish. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, half expecting someone to burst in and snatch it away. When she finished, she lay down on the cloud-like bed. And then the tears came, silent tears that soaked into the pillow that smelled like lavender. She didn't know why she was crying. Relief? Fear? Confusion? Maybe all of it. Another knock interrupted her thoughts. Yes, she called, quickly wiping her face. Robert entered, leaning heavily on his cane. I hope I'm not disturbing you. No, not at all. Maya sat up quickly. He walked to the window and looked out at the manicured gardens below. I imagine this is all quite shocking. I don't understand any of this, she admitted. Robert nodded slowly. I was a fool for most of my life, Maya. I built an empire of glass and steel, but I forgot to build a heart. She listened, unsure what to say. You reminded me that kindness still exists, he continued. Even in the dirt, even barefoot in the rain. Maya looked down at her bandaged feet. Robert turned to face her. I want to make you an offer. What kind of offer? He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. The edges were yellow with age. I need someone to help me with something important. Something personal that I don't trust anyone else with. Maya's pulse quickened. I'm dying, Maya. Her eyes widened. No, it's true, he said calmly. The doctors say I have months at best. Maybe less. Maya felt her chest tighten. I don't understand. You seem fine. I'm good at pretending. He smiled sadly. Years of practice. He unfolded the paper and held it out to her. This is my list. 5 things I need to do before I die. 5 regrets I must face. Maya took the paper with shaking hands. She read slowly. Apologize to the man I betrayed, return the land. I stole, speak to the woman I hurt most, give away what I can't take with metal, the truth to the one who deserves it. She looked up at him. This is heavy. That's why I've avoided it for so long, Robert said. But I want to make things right before I go. And I want you to help me. Why me? Maya asked. I don't belong in this world. You know how to care, he said. That's more valuable than anything else. Maya stared at the list. Will it hurt? Not in the way you think. She took a deep breath. Part of her wanted to run back to the streets, back to the familiar pain of survival. But another part of her, a part she'd buried long ago, wanted to matter. To help. to be seen as more than nothing. Okay, she said finally. I'll help. Robert's face softened with relief. Thank you. Where do we start? She asked. He pointed to the third item on the list. With the hardest one, the woman I hurt most. The morning sun broke through Maya's window, but she barely slept. She kept thinking about the list, about Robert's dying wish, about the woman he'd hurt. At breakfast in the garden, Robert explained everything. Her name is Sarah Bennett, he said, stirring his tea slowly. We met 40 years ago when I was nobody, just a young man with big dreams and empty pockets. Maya listened carefully. She believed in me, Robert continued. She worked 2 jobs to help pay for my first business license. She stayed up late helping me write proposals. She was my partner in every sense. What happened? Maya asked gently. Robert's jaw tightened. I left her. When the money started coming in, when investors got interested, when I got invited to fancy parties with fancy people, I left her behind like she was nothing. Maya felt a pang in her chest. She knew what it felt like to be treated like nothing. I married someone from a wealthy family instead, Robert said. Someone who could open doors for me. Sarah found out through a newspaper announcement. That's cruel, Maya whispered. I know. He looked at her with tired eyes. I want to apologize to her face. No lawyers. No excuses. Just the truth. Do you know where she is? Robert nodded. Last I heard, she's living in a small town called Riverside, about 2 hours north of here. Maya took a deep breath. Then we'll go. An hour later, they were in the car. Marcus drove, while Maya sat beside Robert in the back seat. The city gradually disappeared, replaced by open roads, small farms, and quiet neighborhoods. Robert stared out the window. I haven't left the city in 10 years. Why not? Maya asked. Because the city lets you hide from your memories, he said. Out here, they find you again. Maya understood. On the streets, there was always noise, always movement. It was easier to forget in the chaos. As they entered Riverside, Maya noticed how different it felt from Chicago. Children played in front yards. People waved at passing cars. Life moved slower here. Third house on the left, Robert said quietly. The one with the red mailbox. Marcus parked. Maya helped Robert out of the car. Together, they walked up the path to a small, modest house. Paint peeled from the shutters. Flowers grew in mismatched pots on the porch. A wooden chair sat beside the door. Maya knocked. Nothing. She knocked again. Slowly, the door opened. A woman appeared, gray hair tied in a scarf, dark skin lined with age, sharp brown eyes that saw everything. She looked at Robert. Her hand flew to her mouth. Robert, she whispered. Hello, Sarah. For a long moment, she just stared. Then her hand rose, and she slapped him hard across the face. Maya gasped. Robert didn't flinch. I deserve that. You deserve worse, Sarah said, her voice shaking. I waited for you. I waited for a call, a letter, anything. I know. You left me like garbage, she hissed. I was a coward, Robert said softly. A selfish, stupid man. Tears filled Sarah's eyes. She looked at Maya, then back at Robert. Why are you here now? I'm dying, Robert said. And I couldn't leave this world without saying I'm sorry. Face to face. Sarah's shoulders dropped. The anger seemed to drain from her body. You're lucky I loved you once, she finally said. Then she opened the door wider. Come in. Maya waited on the porch while Robert and Sarah talked inside. She heard voices rise and fall, sometimes angry, sometimes quiet. After nearly an hour, the door opened. Robert stepped out. His eyes were red. His hands trembled more than usual. Sarah followed, her expression calmer now. She looked at Maya. Take care of him. I will, Maya promised. Sarah nodded once, then went back inside. In the car, Robert let out a long, shaking breath. Are you okay? Maya asked. I feel lighter, he said. Did she forgive you? He smiled sadly. She listened. That was more than I deserved. Maya pulled out the list and looked at item number 3. She gently crossed it off. One down, she said. Robert nodded, exhausted but peaceful. 4 to go. As Marcus drove them back toward Chicago, Maya realized something. This journey wasn't just about Robert finding peace. It was about her learning that everyone carries regrets, even billionaires, even the people who seem to have everything. Maybe that's what made us all human. the mistakes we make, and the courage it takes to face them. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere had changed. Robert's children circled like sharks, sensing blood. Maya could feel their eyes on her whenever she walked through the halls. Whispers followed her everywhere. That evening, Robert called Maya to his study. He sat in his leather chair, the list spread out on the desk between them. "Number 1, he said, tapping the paper. "Apologize to the man I betrayed." Maya pulled up a chair. "Tell me about him." Robert leaned back, his face heavy with memory. "His name is David Chun. We were best friends, closer than brothers. We started Sterling Chin Development together 30 years ago." "What happened?" "I got greedy." Robert's voice was flat, emotionless. "When the company started making serious money, I wanted it all. So I manipulated the board, forged some documents, and pushed him out." Maya's eyes widened. "You stole his company?" "Our company," Robert corrected, which made it worse. He paused. David lost everything. His reputation, his savings, his marriage fell apart. "And I became a billionaire. Did you ever tell him the truth?" Robert shook his head. "I lied, told him the board voted him out, that it was out of my hands. But it wasn't. No, it was all me." Maya studied his face. "Do you know where he is now?" "He lives in a town called Lakewood. He left Chicago years ago, built a small architecture school there. Lives simply now." Robert looked down. "Every year on his birthday, I almost call, but I never do." Maya stood. "Then let's go. What if he slams the door in my face?" She gave a small smile. "Then we wait on his doorstep until he opens it again." The drive to Lakewood took longer than the trip to see Sarah. They left early in the morning, and Maya watched the landscape change from highways to small towns to tree-lined streets. When they arrived, Marcus parked in front of a small blue building with a hand-painted sign. Chun School of Architecture, founded by David Chun. Robert stared at the building, his hands shaking on his cane. "Ready?" Maya asked gently. "No," he admitted, "but I'm going anyway." A young man in his 20s greeted them at the door. "Can I help you?" "We're here to see Mr. Chun," Robert said. The young man hesitated. "May I ask who's visiting?" Tell him Robert Sterling is here." The young man's eyes widened. He disappeared inside. A few minutes later, the door opened again. A tall Asian man stepped out. He wore casual clothes, jeans, and a button-up shirt. His black hair was streaked with gray. When he saw Robert, he stopped cold. "Robert Sterling," David said slowly. His voice was controlled, but Maya could hear the tension beneath it. "Hello, David." David crossed his arms. "What are you doing here?" "I came to say something I should have said 30 years ago." "Why now?" David's eyes narrowed. "Because I'm dying," Robert said simply. "And I'm tired of carrying lies." David didn't move. He looked past Robert at Maya. "Who's she?" "Someone who reminded me what it means to be honest," Robert replied. "Her name is Maya." Maya gave a small nod. David studied Robert for a long moment. "You ruined me." "I know. You took everything we built. Every idea, every plan. You erased me from my own company." "I did." "Why?" David's voice cracked. "We were friends. We were brothers." Robert's shoulders sagged. "Because I was weak. I saw an opportunity to have more. And I convinced myself I deserved it more than you did." He paused. "I was wrong." Silence stretched between them like a canyon. David looked down at the ground. "Do you know what hurt most?" "What?" "That you lied about it. If you had just admitted what you did, I could have hated you honestly. But you made me doubt myself for years. Made me think I wasn't good enough." "You were always good enough," Robert said, his voice breaking. "Better than me. I'm not asking for forgiveness, David. I just needed you to know the truth." David took a deep breath, then another. Maya watched his face cycle through emotions. Anger, pain, confusion, and finally something softer. "I forgave you years ago," David said quietly. "Not for you. For me. Because holding on to hate was killing me slowly." He stepped forward and extended his hand. Robert stared at it, then reached out and shook it. "Thank you," Robert whispered. "Don't thank me," David said. "Just don't waste whatever time you have left." They talked for over an hour under a tree behind the school. Maya sat nearby, listening to two old friends remember who they used to be before money and ambition tore them apart. When they returned to the mansion, tension hung in the air like electricity before a storm. Maya felt it the moment she stepped through the front door. Robert's daughter, Victoria, stood at the top of the grand staircase, arms folded across her chest. His two sons, Christopher and James, flanked her on either side. "We need to talk, Father," Victoria said coldly. Robert sighed. "Can it wait until tomorrow?" "No," Christopher said sharply. "It cannot." Maya started to excuse herself, but Robert caught her hand. "Stay, please." They gathered in the main sitting room, a formal space with expensive furniture that nobody ever sat in. Maya perched on the edge of a chair while Robert settled into his usual spot by the fireplace. Victoria wasted no time. "People are talking, Father. They're saying you've been gallivanting around the state with some homeless girl." "Her name is Maya," Robert said calmly. "I don't care what her name is," James snapped. "This is embarrassing our family." "Ow!" Robert asked. "You're a Sterling." Victoria's voice rose. "You can't be seen dragging street urchins around like lost puppies." Maya's face burned. She looked down at her hands. "That's enough," Robert said, his voice hard as steel. "It's not enough," Christopher countered. "We've been patient. We've allowed this situation to continue. But now we're hearing rumors about changes to your will." The room went silent. Robert's expression didn't change. "What I do with my will is my business. Not when it affects the family legacy," Victoria shot back. "Not when you're planning to give everything to a stranger." "I haven't said I'm doing that," Robert replied evenly. "But you're thinking about it," James said. "Admit it." Robert looked at each of his children in turn. "When I collapsed in the street 3 weeks ago, I called all of you. Not one of you answered." Victoria's face reddened. "We were busy. Too busy for your dying father." Robert's voice was quiet but sharp. Maya wasn't too busy. She had nothing, and she gave everything. Christopher stepped forward. "So what? You're going to reward her for basic human decency." "I'm going to trust someone who's proven trustworthy," Robert said. "Something I can't say about any of you." The words landed like bombs. Victoria's eyes filled with angry tears. "How dare you? How dare I?" Robert stood slowly, leaning heavily on his cane. "I gave you everything. Private schools, trust funds, connections, careers handed to you on silver platters. And what have you given me? Distance, silence, greed. That's not fair," James protested. "Isn't it?" Robert looked at him. "When was the last time any of you visited me because you wanted to, not because you needed something?" Nobody answered. Robert turned to Maya. "I'm tired. Will you help me to my room?" Maya stood quickly, relieved to escape the poisonous atmosphere. She helped Robert up the stairs, feeling Victoria's eyes burning into her back. Once they reached his bedroom, Robert sat heavily on the bed. "I'm sorry you had to witness that," he said. "It's not your fault," Maya replied. "They'll come after you," Robert warned. "They'll try to turn me against you. Or worse. I can handle it." He looked at her seriously. "Can you?" "Because once I make certain decisions official, there's no going back. They'll fight. They'll make your life hell." Maya thought about the streets, about the nights she'd gone hungry, about the men who'd tried to hurt her. "I've survived worse than rich people's anger." Robert smiled sadly. "You're braver than you know." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She stood by her window, looking out at the manicured gardens below. Around midnight, she heard voices drifting up from the patio. She cracked her window open and listened. "Can't let this continue." Victoria's voice. "What do you suggest?" "Christopher. We need to prove she's manipulating him." Victoria again. "Find something in her past. Criminal record, drug use, anything." "And if there's nothing?" James asked. A pause. Then Victoria spoke again, her voice cold. "Then we create something." Maya's blood ran cold. She stepped back from the window, her heart pounding. They were planning to destroy her. The next morning, Robert called Maya to his study early. He looked more tired than usual, his skin gray, his breathing labored. "We need to move faster," he said. "I can feel my time running out." Maya sat down. "What's next on the list?" He pointed to number 2. "Return the land I stole." "Tell me about it," Maya said. Robert pulled out an old photograph. It showed a small village, simple homes, dirt roads, smiling families. 20 years ago, I wanted to build a shopping complex," Robert explained. This village was in the way. I used legal tricks and political connections to force them off their land. Paid them almost nothing. Maya studied the photo. Where is this? A place called Pinewood. About 3 hours west of here. What happened to the people? Scattered, Robert said quietly. Some moved to the city. Some lost everything. I built my complex, made millions, and never looked back. Until now, Maya said. He nodded. I want to return the land. Give it back to them, free and clear. Maya's eyes widened. That land must be worth tens of millions, Robert confirmed. I don't care. It was never really mine. Your children will lose their minds, Maya said. I know. He smiled slightly. That's part of the appeal. 2 days later, Maya made the journey to Pinewood alone. Robert was too weak to travel, so he gave her all the documents, signed and notarized, transferring the land back to the village. Marcus drove her through winding country roads until they reached a small community that looked frozen in time. Simple houses, a one-room school, a community center with a tin roof. Maya asked for directions to the village elder's house. An old man named Thomas greeted her at the door, his face weathered and suspicious. I'm here on behalf of Robert Sterling, Maya began. Thomas's expression darkened. That name is not welcome here. I know, Maya said quickly. That's why I came. He wants to return your land. Thomas stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Return it. Maya opened the folder and showed him the documents. All of it. No conditions. No strings attached. It belongs to your people again. Thomas called the other village leaders. They gathered in the community center, examining the documents with disbelief. Why now? One woman asked. After 20 years of silence. Because he's dying, Maya said honestly, and he wants to fix his mistakes before he goes. An older man shook his head. Money can't fix what he did to us. I know, Maya agreed. But maybe this is a start. They debated for hours. Some wanted to refuse out of pride. Others saw it as justice long overdue. Finally, Thomas spoke. We accept, he said, not because we forgive him, but because our children deserve to have their heritage back. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. When she returned to the mansion that evening, she found Robert in his room with Nurse Patricia. He looked worse, paler, weaker. Did they accept? He asked immediately. Maya nodded, unable to speak. Robert closed his eyes in relief. Good. That's good. Patricia looked at Maya with concern. He needs to rest. No more trips for a while. Maya agreed. But as she left the room, she pulled out the list. 2 items crossed off, 3 remaining, and time was running out. For 3 days, Robert didn't leave his bed. Nurse Patricia stayed by his side, constantly monitoring his vitals, adjusting medications. Maya visited every few hours, sitting quietly in the chair beside him. His children visited too, but their concern felt performative. Victoria would stand in the doorway, asking cold questions about his will. Christopher brought his lawyer twice. James barely looked at his father, too busy checking his phone. Maya watched it all with growing anger. On the 4th day, Robert opened his eyes while Maya was reading beside his bed. What are you reading? He asked, his voice weak. Maya held up the book. One of yours. From the library downstairs. It's about architecture. Boring, Robert said with a slight smile. Very, Maya agreed. But I'm trying to understand your world better. He reached for her hand. You already understand the only part that matters. Maya squeezed his fingers gently. How are you feeling? Like I'm running out of time, he said. We need to talk about the list. You need to rest. I'll rest when I'm dead, Robert said. Right now, we have work to do. He tried to sit up, but couldn't. Patricia rushed over to help him, propping pillows behind his back. Number 4, Robert said, breathing hard. Give away what I can't take with me. Maya pulled out the now-worn piece of paper. Your fortune. Most of it, Robert confirmed. I want to establish a foundation. 4 homeless shelters, job training programs, education initiatives. Things that actually help people. Your children, Maya began, will still inherit plenty, Robert interrupted. More than they need. More than they deserve, frankly. He reached for a folder on his nightstand. I've been working with my attorney. These are the documents. I need you to be the one to oversee it. Maya's eyes widened. Me? I don't know anything about running a foundation. You know what it's like to need help? Robert said. That's all the qualification you need. You'll hire good people to handle the details. Maya stared at the documents, overwhelmed. Will you do it? Robert asked. She looked into his tired gray eyes. Yes. That afternoon, Victoria discovered the truth. Maya heard the screaming from 2 floors away. She rushed downstairs to find Victoria in Robert's study, papers scattered everywhere, her face purple with rage. A foundation? Victoria shrieked. You're giving billions to a foundation run by her. Christopher and James stood behind her, equally furious. Robert sat calmly in his chair. It's my money. I'll do with it as I please. This is insane, Christopher shouted. She's been here 3 weeks, and you're handing her control of everything. Not everything, Robert said. You'll each still receive $5 million. More than enough to live comfortably. $5 million. James's voice was ice. When we should be getting hundreds of millions. Should be. Robert's voice hardened. Based on what? What have any of you done to earn it besides be born? Victoria pointed a shaking finger at Maya. This is her fault. She's poisoned you against us. She didn't need to, Robert said. You did that yourselves years ago. Victoria's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of pure rage. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret, Robert said slowly, is not seeing clearly who you really are sooner. Victoria turned and stormed out, her brothers following. The door slammed, so hard a painting fell off the wall. Maya stood frozen in the doorway. Robert looked at her. Now they'll really come after you. That night, Maya lay in bed, unable to sleep. Around 2 a.m., she heard a sound. Footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside her door. She held her breath. The doorknob turned slowly. The door opened. A figure stepped inside, masked, dressed in black. Maya's survival instincts kicked in. She rolled off the bed just as the figure lunged. She grabbed the lamp and swung hard. The intruder stumbled back. Help! Maya screamed. Help! The security alarm blared. Lights flooded the hallway. The intruder ran. Guards rushed in within seconds. They chased the figure down the stairs, but whoever it was escaped through a back entrance. Robert arrived minutes later, leaning on Patricia. His face was white with fear. Are you hurt? He demanded. Maya shook her head, adrenaline still pumping through her veins. That's it, Robert said. We're finishing this. Tomorrow. No more waiting. Finishing what? Maya asked. Robert's jaw tightened. Number 5. Tell the truth to the one who deserves it. He looked at her intensely. It's time you knew everything, Maya. Every secret. Every truth. Because what I'm about to tell you will change both our lives forever. Maya's heart pounded. What are you talking about? Robert took a deep breath. Tomorrow morning. I'll explain everything. But tonight, Patricia and 2 guards will stay outside her door. You're not safe here anymore. As Patricia led Maya back to bed and positioned herself in a chair by the door, Maya stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. What truth could be so big that it required a whole item on Robert's list? What secret had he been carrying all this time? And why did she have the terrible feeling that once she knew, nothing would ever be the same? Maya didn't sleep after the attack. She sat in bed watching the sun rise through her window, Patricia dozing in the chair nearby, 2 security guards stationed outside her door. At 7 a.m., Robert knocked gently. Come in, Maya called. He entered slowly, looking more frail than ever. Patricia woke and immediately checked his vitals, then reluctantly left them alone at Robert's insistence. Robert sat in the chair across from Maya's bed. Between them sat a small wooden box she'd never seen before. That box, Robert began, contained something I should have shown you weeks ago. Maya's pulse quickened. What is it? The answer to number 5 on my list, he said. Tell the truth to the one who deserves it. He paused. That person is you, Maya. She frowned, confused. Me? But we barely knew each other before I found you in the street. That's what I thought too, Robert said. Until I did some research. He opened the box and pulled out a photograph. He handed it to Maya. It showed a young woman, maybe 20 years old, with dark hair and warm brown eyes. She wore a simple dress and smiled at the camera. Who is this? Maya asked. Her name was Elena Rodriguez, Robert said. She worked as a housekeeper at one of my properties 30 years ago. Maya stared at the photo. Something about the woman's eyes looked familiar. We had an affair, Robert continued quietly. I was married to my first wife at the time. Elena and we fell in love. Or at least I thought we did. Maya's heart began to pound. When Elena got pregnant, I panicked, Robert said, his voice heavy with shame. I was building my empire. A scandal would have destroyed everything. So I paid her off and sent her away. Maya's hands trembled. What happened to her? She had the baby. A daughter. Robert's eyes met Maya's. She named her Maria. The room seemed to tilt. Maya couldn't breathe. Elena died when Maria was 7 years old, Robert continued. Cancer. By that time, I'd lost track of them completely. I told myself it was better that way. Why are you telling me this? Maya whispered, though deep down she already knew. Robert pulled out another document. A birth certificate. 3 weeks ago, after you saved my life, I had my investigator look into your background. Standard procedure for anyone entering my home. He slid the birth certificate across to her. Maya picked it up with shaking hands. Name, Maria Elena Rodriguez. Mother, Elena Rodriguez. Father, unknown date of birth, March 15th, 2004. You changed your name to Maya when you were 16, Robert said softly, after you ended up on the streets. Tears blurred Maya's vision. You're saying, I'm your father, Robert said, his voice breaking. And I abandoned you before you were even born. Maya stood abruptly, the birth certificate falling to the floor. No, that's not possible. I have DNA results, Robert said, pulling out another document. I had them rush it. 99.9% match. Maya's legs gave out. She sat back down hard on the bed. My whole life, she whispered. My whole life, I wondered why my mother would never tell me who my father was. She said he was gone, that he didn't want us. She was right, Robert said, tears streaming down his face. I didn't want the complication. I chose money over family. Over you. Maya felt like she was drowning. 21 years of questions, of abandonment, of wondering if she was unwanted. And here was the answer. The richest man in Chicago was her father, and he'd thrown her away like garbage. That's why you brought me here? She asked, anger rising in her voice. Guilt. At first, I didn't know, Robert said. I just saw someone kind helping a stranger. But when I found out who you were, he wiped his eyes. I couldn't tell you right away. I needed to earn your trust first, to prove I could be better than the man who abandoned you. Maya laughed bitterly. So the list, the wishes, all of it, was that just to make yourself feel better? No, Robert said firmly. The list was real. Those regrets were real. But you, Maria, you were the biggest regret of all. Number 5, tell the truth to the one who deserves it. That's you. You deserve to know who your father was. I don't want a father, Maya said coldly. Not now. Not after everything. I know, Robert said. I don't deserve to be called your father. But I want you to have what's rightfully yours. The foundation, the inheritance, it's not charity. It's what you should have had from the beginning. Maya stood and walked to the window, her back to him. I need time. I don't have much time left, Robert said quietly. Then maybe you should have thought about that 21 years ago, Maya replied. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Robert stood slowly. I'll leave you alone. But Maya, Maria, whatever you want to be called, I'm sorry. For all of it. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Maya stood at the window and cried. Not because she'd found her father, but because the man who'd abandoned her was the same man who'd finally seen her. And she didn't know if she could ever forgive him. Maya spent 3 days in her room. She didn't speak to Robert. She barely ate. Nurse Patricia brought her meals and sat quietly, offering comfort without words. On the 3rd day, Patricia finally spoke. He's dying, Maya. Faster now. Maybe days, not weeks. Maya stared at the wall. Good. Patricia sighed. You don't mean that. Don't I? Maya's voice was hollow. He threw me away. Let my mother struggle. Let me end up on the streets. Why should I care if he dies? Because despite everything, Patricia said gently, he tried to make it right. Not perfectly. Not soon enough. But he tried. Maya said nothing. Your mother, Patricia continued. Did she ever speak badly of him? Maya thought back to hazy childhood memories. Her mother's tired smile. She said he was lost, that some people don't know what they have until it's gone. Sounds like she understood him, Patricia said. Maybe even forgave him. She was better than me then. Patricia stood to leave. Or maybe she just knew that holding on to hate hurts the person carrying it more than anyone else. After Patricia left, Maya pulled out the photograph of her mother again. Elena Rodriguez. She studied her mother's face, the warm eyes, the gentle smile. What would she want Maya to do? That night, Maya made her decision. She walked to Robert's room and knocked. "Come in," his weak voice called. She entered. Robert lay in bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, monitors beeping softly. He looked like a ghost of the man who'd first sat beside her in that alley. "Maya," he breathed. "You came." She pulled a chair close to his bed. "I'm not here to forgive you." His face fell. "But I'm not here to hate you either," she continued. "I'm here because you completed your list. All 5 things. And someone should witness that." Robert's eyes filled with tears. "Did I complete it?" Number 1, apologize to David. Done. Number 2, return the land. Done. Number 3, apologize to Sarah. Done. Number 4, give away your fortune. Done. Number 5, tell the truth to me. Done. "But you don't forgive me," Robert whispered. "Not yet," Maya said honestly. "Maybe not ever. But that wasn't the wish. The wish was to tell the truth. You did that." Robert closed his eyes. "I failed you as a father." "Yes, you did. But these last weeks with you, they were the best of my life." Maya felt her throat tighten. "You gave me something I never had. You saw me. You made me matter, even if it came 21 years too late." Robert reached for her hand. She hesitated, then took it. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you rest," Maya said. "And I figure out what to do with the mess you left me." A small smile touched his lips. "You'll do better than I ever did." "I know," Maya said. And for the first time in days, she almost smiled. They sat in silence for a while. Then Robert spoke again. "The lawyer is coming tomorrow to make everything official. The foundation, the will, all of it. Your children will fight it," Maya warned. "Let them try," Robert said. "Everything is documented, video recorded, legally airtight. They'll get their inheritance, but you'll get what matters, the chance to help people like you used to be." Maya squeezed his hand. "Thank you." "No," Robert whispered. "Thank you for giving a dying old man a chance to be human again." The next morning, the lawyer arrived with a full legal team. Robert sat up in bed, weak but determined, and signed document after document. The Sterling Foundation was established with Maya as executive director. His children would each receive $5 million. The mansion would be converted into a shelter for homeless youth. And Maya, Maria Elena Rodriguez Sterling, was officially recognized as his daughter and primary heir. Victoria, Christopher, and James stood in the corner of the room, their faces twisted with fury. But the documents were ironclad. There was nothing they could do. "This isn't over," Victoria hissed at Maya as they left. "Yes, it is," Maya said calmly. "Your father made his choice. Now live with it." That evening, Maya sat with Robert one last time. His breathing was labored. His skin was cold. "Read me something," he whispered, "from that boring architecture book." Maya smiled through her tears and began to read. Halfway through the second page, his hand went limp in hers. Nurse Patricia checked his pulse, then gently closed his eyes. "He's gone," Patricia said softly. Maya sat for a long time, holding the hand of the father she'd never really known. The man who'd abandoned her, found her, and in his final weeks, tried to give her everything. She cried, not for what they'd had, but for what they'd never have. For the little girl who'd needed a father and the old man who'd learned too late what really mattered. 3 months later, Maya stood in front of the newly renamed Sterling Rodriguez Center for Youth. The old mansion had been transformed. Where there had been ballrooms, now there were classrooms. Where there had been guest rooms, now there were safe beds for kids with nowhere else to go. A young girl, maybe 14, approached her shyly. "Miss Maya, I just wanted to say thank you. Before I came here, I was sleeping in a park. Now I have a bed and people who care." Maya knelt down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" "Sophie." "Well, Sophie, you never have to thank me. You deserve safety. You deserve kindness. Never forget that." The girl hugged her tightly, then ran off to join her friends. Patricia walked up beside Maya. "He'd be proud of you." Maya looked up at the building, at the stone archways, the glass walls, the gold lamps. "I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing it for every kid like me who thought they didn't matter." "Maybe," Patricia said, "but you're also proving that even broken people can leave something beautiful behind." That night, Maya returned to her small apartment downtown. She'd refused to keep the mansion for herself. Instead, she lived simply, worked hard, and used Robert's fortune to actually help people. On her desk sat the worn piece of paper, the list of 5 wishes. She'd framed it. Beneath it, she'd added a 6th item in her own handwriting. Prove that the girl nobody saw could become the woman who changed everything. Maya smiled and turned off the light. She'd started with nothing. She'd been abandoned, forgotten, left to survive on the streets alone. But she'd found something more valuable than money. Purpose. Robert Sterling had been a billionaire who died with regrets. Maya Rodriguez was a survivor who'd turned those regrets into redemption. And in the end, that made all the difference. And that's the end of Maya's incredible journey. From homeless and invisible to running a foundation that changes lives every single day. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that no matter where you come from, you can create an incredible future. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment from this entire series. And remember, you matter. You are seen, and your story is just beginning. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. Red Heart.